I think Trump might announce an end to the Iran war today. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. You hear a little hesitation in my voice, but Donald Trump is set to speak to the nation, I think 7 p.m. our time. Isn't that right, Trina? And we're going to carry it live on WBAP, so we might have to break into our programming there. If he's on time, we'll have to break into Mark Levin. But you'll hear it here. A couple of little sound bites to help you understand why I'm taking this position. First off, Trump was asked, does Iran even have to sign anything for there to be a deal? And technically, no. Trump can come out and say, listen, we had 3 big objectives. We accomplished all of them. Whether they sign a piece of paper or not, we're good to go. We're done in Iran. So that's kind of promising. But, this was him being asked about it yesterday.
Does Iran have to make a deal for the U.S. to end its operation in Iran? And have you spoken directly?
Iran doesn't have to make a deal, no. Yeah, I've spoken to a lot of people. It's a new regime. They are much more accessible. They are right. They said, we have a present for you, Mr. President, out of respect. And they said, wait a minute, you wanted me to answer the question. You're a fresh person. We've had a lot of problems with you, haven't we? No, they don't. You asked me a question. No, they don't have to make a deal with me. When we feel that they are, for a long period of time, put into the Stone Ages, and they won't be able to come up with a nuclear weapon, then we'll leave. Whether we have a deal or not, it's irrelevant. Now, it's possible that we'll have a deal because they want to make a deal. They want to make a deal more than I want to make a deal. But in a fairly short period of time, we'll be finished. They will not be able to do a nuclear weapon for years. And when they are ready, maybe in a long time from now, able to do a nuclear weapon, you'll have a president that will be like me in that he will go there and he'll knock the hell out of them again because they cannot have a nuclear weapon. They are very radicalized people. They're very sick leaderships. And I will say, though, that the leadership we're dealing with now, with the new regime, because we have a new regime, and the new regime is much better.
So let me thread a very delicate needle here. I think we may get some contrasting information. I think he's going to declare an end, not the mission accomplished banner, but he's going to declare an end to the hostilities. He's going to declare the objectives have been reached. And so you're going to feel like this is winding up and sort of winding down. But I feel like simultaneously he's going to break it to the American people that, yep, now that it's all done, we're going to put some boots on the ground. And it's not going to be much. He's not going to, he'll give you a timeline, but timelines mean nothing these days. Remember 15 days to slow the spread? How'd that work? So I think he's going to do a little bit of both. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227 if you want to speculate on what's going to be said tonight. But Bill O'Reilly thinks that something positive is going to happen because he wouldn't stop and tell the world that nothing's happening.
Well, let's take a look at what's going to happen tomorrow night because it'll be very interesting. President Trump, I've known him 35 years. He doesn't deliver bad news like this. So you can expect a positive speech tomorrow at 9 Eastern. Okay, he's not going to go in and say, hey, we screwed up. It isn't working out. We're not getting what we want. That's not happening. Mm-hmm. So the president will put a positive face on the situation. He'll run down his greatest hits like he always does. You've heard it before, but he'll reiterate. And then he'll pivot. I'm not sure what the Iranians have agreed to, but they've agreed to something. So he's not going to go on and say, hey, I don't have anything. Thanks for watching, and now back to different strokes. He's not going to do that. So the Iranians agreed to something. Mm-hmm. But it'll probably leak out tomorrow, I'd say around mid-afternoon, what that something is.
See, so he's about half on board with me because I'm adding to that. You're about to get the hard news of boots on the ground. He's going to tell you the good news first. But now, after hearing Bill O'Reilly, I do kind of want to watch different strokes. It's been a while. All right, enough of that. Let's see. M. Snow was previewing Trump's speech. They're not expecting a whole lot out of it because they are questioning his mental health. Here's Katie Turr.
Is Donald Trump well? Is his head in the presidency? Does he have the mental acuity to lead this country? More people are starting to doubt that, beyond, of course, Democrats who have always doubted it. This is being borne out in two new polls. The first one from the Washington Post, ABC, and Ipsos, which finds a number of people who think he lacks the mental sharpness to serve effectively, is now climbing 56%. And the second from Reuters and Ipsos, which shows 6 in 10 Americans now say President Trump is becoming more erratic as he ages. That includes a growing number of Democrats, independents, and Republicans. Why is that? Well, the apparent sleeping during...
Oh, God, just cut it off there. That takes a huge pair. I mean, Katie Turr must have a couple of basketballs hanging down in her lap right now. For the people who told us Biden was sharp as a tack for the last 4 years. For the people who were clapping back. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Are you a doctor? Are you a mental health professional? Are you even qualified to make such assessments? Remember how they were defending Biden? You don't know what you're talking about. You're not a doctor. You're just someone speculating hatefully because you don't like the guy. Oh, yeah. What about you, Katie Turr? Are you a doctor? Are you a licensed clinician? Do you have the background and expertise to be diagnosing complex medical issues? Of course not. But I think Trump is aware of his original timeline, and he's going to update that as well tonight. Remember, this was Carolyn Leavitt, 6 days into the bombing, I believe it was, on March 6th.
I won't get ahead of the president on broadcasting any timelines. What I will tell you is what President Trump has already laid out, which is that the achievable objectives of Operation Epic Fury we expect to last about 4 to 6 weeks, and we are well on our way to achieving those objectives.
So they're 4 to 6 weeks, and then she lays out the objectives. Because they do that in every public speaking event. And it's just marvels how we don't even know what the objectives are. You turn on CNN, they'll say that. Someone's saying that right now on CNN. Someone's saying that tonight on M. Snow. Before the cock crows 3 times, someone's going to say that on M. Snow. All right, coming up next, continuing to preview the big Trump speech tonight on Iran. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. We're getting a big speech from Trump tonight on the Iran war. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP, your home for Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. Three great guys who were on right before the James Show. They're all over this Iran story because, look, let's rewind to the update we got yesterday on the situation with Trump, Iran, Straits of Hormuz, the allies, because I think this is something that's going to be addressed tonight. Again, it's scheduled for 7:45 Central Time tonight. There's been an almost 100% chance that it's going to be at least a little bit late, but it's slated for 7:45. Again, let's get this update just from yesterday, WFAA.
As the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, President Trump this morning is telling other countries to either purchase U.S. oil or build up some delayed courage and just take it from the strait. This morning, the defense secretary echoing the president with an even more pointed jab at our ally, Britain.
Last time I checked, there was supposed to be a big bad Royal Navy that could be prepared to do things like that as well.
Trump goes on in his post about allies, quote, "You have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be able to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us."
When we ask for additional assistance or simple access basing overflight, we get questions or roadblocks or hesitations. And the president's pointing out, you don't have much of an alliance if you have countries that are not willing to stand with you when you need them.
But what could he say in a speech about the allies tonight? I mean, I have a feeling he's going to announce a deal, like either he's made a deal with someone that he's talking to over there, or he's going to say that we've accomplished all our objectives, whether or not they signed a piece of paper. I don't know which one it's going to be, but there is going to be at least an end to this phase of the war. My concern is after he drops that good news, he's going to say, yeah, now that we have a deal, we are going to have to, temporarily put a handful of troops there just to do some, just basic utility things. And so this could end up being, look, this is my worst case scenario. This is a sneaky way that he's going to be escalating the war while trying to give the impression that the war is de-escalating, the war is winding down. Because most of us understand that if you're going to put thousands and thousands of troops on the ground in Iran, that's an escalation, right? Wouldn't we all agree? I didn't go to West Point, neither did you, but we can all agree that that sounds like an escalation. He knows that's not going to be politically popular. He knows he's getting toward the end of his deadline. We're in week 5. We just passed 4 weeks this weekend of the Iran war. So he's kind of winding down on that original timetable that I played for you in the last segment. Thank you very much. And so this accomplishes a couple things. It gets him to hold tight to that timeline that he originally set. He gets to escalate the war with it looking like a de-escalation. And that's my prediction. 800-288-9227. If you have a prediction, is there something you want to add to that? Is there something I missed? Because I feel like there's a few things that need to be addressed. Number one, he's going to cover the objectives, the 3 objectives. You can say the first 2 have been pretty much accomplished there. He's degraded them militarily. They can hardly fire missiles anymore, but they are still firing missiles. They don't have much of a navy to speak of, but they are still causing problems with the Straits of Hormuz. We do not have an answer on the nuclear weapon situation, which does open up the possibility. I don't think this is a probability, but a possibility that he's made some sort of deal in exchange for the uranium, because that would just be gangbusters, red lights flashing, big win for the Trump administration all the way around if he walks away with uranium. That would be incredible. Even if he just walks away with like half of it, that would be incredible. But there's a lot of things to mop up here. Straits of Hormuz. What's going on with the allies? Why aren't they picking up? What are we even bothering with NATO for? In situations like this, what do we have your back when Russia gets a little froggy over there and they jump into Georgia and they jump in Ukraine and Abkhazia and South Ossetia? Oh yeah, you want us to come help out with that. But you won't even let us do flyovers in the Iran situation that benefits us all. So he has a lot he could address tonight. And this could be a really good speech. This could be a very disappointing speech. I'm going to lean positive. I don't see a whole lot of evidence that there's anything catastrophic. I think it might be disappointing when we look back a year from now, like, oh, I expected that timetable to be shorter. But I think if there was going to be a dirty bomb, I think if they had the ability to strike European cities and were going to do it, they would have done it by now. I have a real hard time putting my foot down on these predictions and putting my foot down on these assertions because right now, you and I don't even know who he's talking to over there. So we're going to find out a lot together. Stick with WBAP tonight. We're expecting to run it at 7:45, but pretty much every time they do something like this, it starts a little bit late. Just stick with us. What we are going to have here on the domestic front is no matter what he says, there are going to be some people that say this was terrible. No matter if it's positive, if he announces a war, end of the war, if he announces a deal, there's going to be just people who have the inability to give him credit. Now, these people should be ignored, but they do have millions of followers and listeners and viewers and whatnot. So we will have to address it, but don't let that affect, your opinion of what's happening. Their opinion means nothing. Everything he says, they say is terrible. So don't lose any sleep off of that. But just remember, these people are the useful idiots. Like the Queers for Palestine. What happens to you if you go to Palestine? Queers for Palestine. And don't bang your head wondering why these useful idiots are advocating for a religion and a political ideology that would easily trample them underfoot. Yuri Bezmenov, the KGB defector that came to the United States late 70s, early 80s, did an interview, I think this is 1980, where he talks about these people, the useful idiots.
Useful idiots, the leftists who are idealistically believing in the beauty of Soviet socialist or communist or whatever system, when they get disillusioned, they become the worst enemies. That's why my KGB instructors specifically made the point, never bother with leftists. Forget about these political prostitutes. Aim higher.
But to eliminate the others, to execute the others, don't they serve some purpose? Wouldn't they be the ones they rely on?
They serve purpose only at the stage of destabilization of a nation.
Yeah, and so you saw that happen in Michigan when the immigration of Muslims into, it's next to Dearborn, Hamtramck. They are now enough of the population in Hamtramck that they got a majority of city council seats, and they immediately banned the pride flag. What do you think was going to happen, lefties? Lisa in Dallas, you're on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. What are you expecting in the Iran speech tonight?
Hi. I just wanted to point something out. You had asked if you had missed anything earlier, and I actually don't have an opinion on this, but I was going to tell you what a lot of the Iranians that I spoke with at CPAC were saying. I thought it was really interesting. We kept asking them, do you want boots on the ground? And they kept telling us, without a doubt, yes, their people will die, and they do not have any weapons to fight back, to fight with the IRGC unless there is boots on the ground. So that was the consensus that I got from talking to.
Man, there were a ton of Iranians at CPAC. Have
Yes.
Iranians always been so Republican oriented, or are they just new fans because of the Iran war?
I definitely think that there has been an increase because obviously he's helping to free them right now. So the ball's in their court, but what are they going to do if IRGC is running around with weapons?
Well, I know what we do. Same thing we did in Ukraine. We just sent them a bunch of, evil assault rifles. Like, oh, no, can't have these things. You might overthrow a tyrannical government. Thank you very much, Lisa in Dallas. Coming up next, there is an update on the having babies topic that somehow became controversial. Conservative activists at CPAC recommended that young ladies have babies even before they think they can afford them. The View thought that was awful, and there's a bunch of back and forth going on. You'll get caught up on that next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. The response to the View's anti-family take been kind of encouraging. I'm James Parker. This is the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. I talked about this for a little bit on yesterday's show. We just kind of had a little bit of fun with the View. I know something about them just naturally looks at anything that happened at CPAC, and they just listen to it with the intention of saying, how can I oppose this? How can I convince some disparate third party watching this show that this is wrong? Because what was said wasn't crazy. The lady on the stage, Isabel Brown, just said, you should have kids before you think you're ready. It's a blessing. Now, I have kids, and I kind of felt, I don't want to say mad, but I felt deceived, I suppose, when I finally did have kids, because, I don't know, when you're a young man, the scariest, before you get married and you're engaged or whatever, the scariest phone call or text message you could get is from the girl you're currently seeing, and she says, I'm late. And you're like, oh my God, no, she's late. Kids in the car, don't ask your mom what that means. And so pregnancy, having a baby, was actually the scariest thing in the world. When you actually get into a healthy relationship and you get married and you have a baby, whenever you get the same text message, I'm late, greatest text message in the world. Greatest message you could possibly get. And so it's amazing. The thing that used to be the scariest thing in the world, the second you're in that healthy relationship with your soulmate, all of a sudden that flips just to the other end of the spectrum. It's the greatest thing in the world. And nobody tells young men that. Or I guess not enough people are telling young men that. It's not in the popular culture. It's not in rock music. It's not in rap music. It's not in pop music. It is in country music. There's a lot of great songs talking about, buy dirt, or let me tell you a secret about a father's love, or there's a lot of them that glorify having babies and a family. But let me do the review here, because in the View cut, they actually play the setup audio from Isabel Brown. This was on the View a couple days ago, and then we have a fun response from that happened on yesterday. You'll hear next.
I don't even know how to explain this story, but I'm going to tell you what happened. The Conservative Political Action Conference, known as CPAC, wrapped up this weekend, and conservative activist Isabel Brown had a message for her fellow Gen Z women, who reportedly are the least likely group in America to get married and have kids.
If you're not encouraging your children to grow up and have the courage to get married and have kids, more kids than they can afford before they think they're ready, it is high time to start. It is these choices, like deleting our dating apps and quitting birth control pills and saying I do at the altar, that ultimately trickle down into the political policies that we will see save our country.
I think it's just really reckless to be suggesting that people should have children when you now know in this country there's this affordability crisis, and for a two-person household, a married household, you need over $400,000 for childcare. Over $400,000.
No, you don't.
Most people don't make over $400,000. So she's advocating for people to be born into poverty, people not being able to feed those children, people not being able to educate those children, and people not being able to house those children at the same time when this government is cutting all of the services that would allow people to have families and big families and children.
How is there 5 people at that table and they're all agreeing to what is obviously just the 180-degree interpretation of reality? Well, you can't have a kid. It's going to cost you $400,000 and you can't afford that. Have you not seen the black and white photos of your great-grandparents who came out and without a house with electricity, without a house with running water? Literally, my grandmother had a cistern on top of her house. Garrett, you're going to have to Google that. Cistern. You don't really have to do that. I'm just saying. They didn't have food stamps. They didn't have welfare. They didn't have, some of them are old enough before even public schools. But they didn't have all these programs. They didn't have Section 8. They didn't have public housing. They didn't have children's health insurance programs. They didn't have Obamacare. They didn't have Medicare. They didn't have Medicaid. They didn't have WIC. Yet somehow your great-grandparents cranked out 12 kids, 8 kids in a lame family, And somehow they were all raised and they didn't starve. Don't you love that? They can't even feed their kids. Who can't feed their kids in 2026 America? And when I say who can't feed their kids, I realize some people don't actually participate in the feeding of their kids, but that doesn't mean they go hungry. Zero people die of famine in America in your entire life. You understand that? Like, what a ridiculous statement. Oh, they can't even afford to feed their kids. Oh, really? We have a problem with child starvation in America? No, we have a problem with our kids being so damn fat, only 30% of them qualify for the military. So I love the clapback. First, there was a good one. Dave Ramsey responded to this. And I don't know if he did this yesterday, but this was getting passed around yesterday. And I thought it was perfect. Dave Ramsey, the get out of debt financial guy. This was his take to a caller who was asking about this exact situation, and it's perfect.
I wanted to know when an okay time would be for my husband and I to start trying to have a baby
now,
and make sure that we're financially stable.
Now, right now.
Right now, that's what I'm saying, but he wants to pay off the house.
No.
Make sure that we have no debt.
No.
Dave, would you be more clear with her, please?
No, you need to have babies. You need to have them right now.
Well, not after the call.
No, right now.
I'll go work on that. Thank you.
No, seriously, the thing is, people have this thing in their head because the media has told them that children are so expensive. They're not that expensive. The first couple of years, you buy some formula and diapers, and you have to pay the pediatrician's portion payment. But other than that, after that, they start eating your food and stuff. This idea that you have to somehow be wealthy to raise children is absolutely asinine. Poor people have raised lots of children. And functional ones, too. They learn to work. They learn to clean house. They learn to be good kids. And so, no. They are not. Those two things are not connected.
And it's even more dastardly because we actually have the opposite problem in America in 2026. We're not having too many kids. We're having too few kids. You realize without immigration, the population of this country would have fallen over the last 20 years? You understand we're not having enough kids to keep this little experiment going without importing new people? We are dying. Our society has shunned and demonized and mocked the family and having children so much that we're literally dying off. Not only do we need to start having more babies, we need to start now. We need to encourage family formation. We need to encourage having as many kids as possible. Me and Miss Parker had 4. And the only thing I regret is and when I met her, we didn't start sooner. That was great advice from Isabel Brown, from Dave Ramsey. Terrible advice from The View. If everyone listened to The View, we would go extinct. If everyone listened to me and Ramsey and Isabel Brown, we would turn this thing around and grow again. What kind of weird auto-genocide are these people running? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. And yeah, that is kind of a rhetorical question. Coming up next, Tony Ortiz of Current Revolt going to tell you what he saw at some of the protests over the weekend. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. All right, you're going to get an update on or a review of CPAC and then some bad news on Muslim schools in Texas getting vouchers. And you're going to get them both from my next guest, Tony Ortiz from Current Revolts. Tony, welcome back to the James Show. First off, thanks for stopping by and hanging out at CPAC. That was a pretty good time. Well, I thought the highlight of your CPAC experience was chasing down the right-wing influencer Elijah Schaffer, which I don't know what the whole backstory is, but I saw your post of his and kind of had to sort of do a little bit of research, and I wish I hadn't. Wait. Before we tell the story, assume the people listening don't know who Elijah Schaffer is and what the backstory is. Glenn Beck. That's not very nice of you, Tony, to put him on blast like that, but it is kind of fun to watch. All right, now to the fun little scuttlebutts out of the way. I saw on your website, currentrevolt.com, some very disappointing news about Muslim schools and school choice in Texas. You want to tell them? That's nice and disappointing. All right, Tony Ortiz, what is on Current Revolt or coming up soon that I haven't seen yet? Ooh, that's nice and weird. Did you see this story? I'll play the Fox News report. I'm sure you've seen it about Kristi Noem's husband. Here, let me.
Former Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is asking for privacy and prayers tonight. She's said to be devastated by a report alleging her husband has been what is being called a cross-dressing double life. Senior national correspondent Rich Edson has details.
Yeah, we don't need details on that. That's kind of such a wild story because I didn't know anything about that. I don't know if anybody did, and I'm just late to the party. The only thing I had heard that was weird around that marriage was her supposed affair with Corey Lewandowski, which I guess that makes more sense given this new information, but what a weird story. Wait, wouldn't that be like a good thing? I thought we're supposed to be still. Wouldn't it just Trans Day of Visibility a couple days ago? He should be celebrated, though. We celebrate that now, right? And he's I like how trans people are awesome unless it's the Republican that's doing it. And then it's like, look at this piece of garbage. All right. Tony Ortiz, Current Revolt's awesome. I thank you for being on the show and had fun hanging out at CPAC. Go check out his CPAC review. It goes into a lot more detail than what we talked about on here. CurrentRevolt.com. CurrentRevolt.com. Yeah, coming up next, we'll go into a little bit more on that story on Kristi Noem's husband, the secret trans life, and it's pretty weird. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. All right, I thought being trans was a good thing. Is it a bad thing now? I'm confused. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Of course, if you're just walking into the show, you might be confused too. This is a weird story, y'all. Look, it takes all kinds. I'm a very open-minded guy. I'm a little more libertine, not just libertarian, than most of the people here in talk radio. This is a weird one. Kristi Noem, she was the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security until a couple weeks ago. And her husband's been outed as a guy who dresses up as a woman, and it's ridiculously so. The pictures that got released of this dude, he's got like balloons stuffed into a tank top, and he has the balloon knots facing forward, so I guess they look like nipples poking through or something. And he's wearing like these tiny little white pink shorts that are like little bicycle shorts that like Miss Parker wears when she goes jogging. They look fantastic on Miss Parker. They look like an absolute nightmare on this guy.
Hi, Miss Parker.
And he has some weird thing where he goes to fetish sites and supposedly, reportedly, whatever, he spent $12,000 on fetish models. I don't understand how OnlyFans exists. Like, how do you get dudes to pay for adult content when there's free adult content out there? I don't know, man. Because like I like girls just as much as the next guy, probably a little bit more than average, but I wouldn't spend one dime on it. So one of the models, air quote, adult models that he's been paying for this fetish site, leaked the pictures of him because she's an illegal immigrant and she's getting some sort of retaliation for the whole DHS and deportations or something, I guess. Anyway, I'm going to play I played you just a clip from the Fox News report in the last segment. Here's the full thing. It's about a minute and a half of just weirdness.
Former Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is asking for privacy and prayers tonight. She's said to be devastated by a report alleging her husband has been what is being called a cross-dressing double life. Senior national correspondent Rich Edson has details tonight. Good evening, Rich.
Good evening, Brett. Well, former Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and now President Trump are responding to a report regarding Noem's husband's alleged online activities. A spokesperson tells the Daily Mail that she's devastated and that, quote, the family was blindsided by this, and they ask for privacy and prayers at the time. President Trump tells the outlet he knew nothing about it, adding, wow, I feel badly for the family. If that's the case, that's too bad. The Daily Mail alleges it obtained hundreds of messages between Brian Noem and 3 women involved in a site where men cross-dress. The Mail posted several of these photos and writes Brian Noem allegedly sent women in the community $25,000 in virtual payments. The publication says Brian Noem did not deny the explicit conversations, but says he never put national security at risk while his wife was secretary, setting up a potential blackmail situation. Quote, yeah, I made no comments like that. That would lead to that. Brian Noem operates a crop insurance agency. He and Kristi Noem married in 1992. They have 3 adult-age children. Earlier this month, President Trump ousted Secretary Noem from her role leading the Homeland Security Department after congressional hearings where she had difficulty answering whether she was having an affair with top aide Corey Lewandowski. With her husband seated behind her, she also faced questions about more than $200 million in DHS ad campaigns that featured Noem. Democrats are investigating that businesses that received money on that contract. The president named Noem as special envoy to the Shield of the Americas, Brett.
All kinds of stories today. Rich,
Lots
thank
of
you.
them.
Yeah, how you like that one, Brett Bear? You didn't wake up expecting to do that one today. So what, did they have some sort of arrangement? Because if they do, it sounds like maybe Kristi Noem knew about this and she's like, fine, you can do your own little weird thing. We're not going to get divorced, though. I'm a politician already, and probably, that would have dethroned her attempt at running for governor, or could have hurt it. Also, why not stay together for the kids? You go do your weird little sex thing. I'll go have an affair with Corey Lewandowski. We can live in separate houses. We don't have to get ugly about this. How many politicians have that arranged marriage? Because a lot of people were making that assumption about what goes on with our attorney general and his wife, who are both politicians. We know, the Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton marriage is just an arrangement of convenience. It's just utility. There's no love there. You think they're soulmates? You think Bill Clinton and or Hillary Clinton look at the other one and go, "Oh, that's my soulmate. I'm so happy with this person." Yeah, of course not. But how many are like that? I think a lot of them are like that. I think House of Cards was really awesome in the fact that in their attempt to be extreme and sensational, they actually did a pretty good job capturing the ugly underbelly of what goes on with people in power. What is the deal with people in power that they do all this stuff? Well, people with big appetites for power often have big appetites for other things. And I'm just confused here because why are you making fun of the guy? Why is this a bad thing? I thought it was celebrated. You can't make fun of the guy if you're on Team Blue. You guys had a trans person be like the vice admiral for the Navy. You had another trans person in the Biden administration that was like the undersecretary with the nuclear codes. You have the McGrath that is a trans representative in Congress right now. So you can't say anything bad about his sexual peccadillos. That's celebrated for all of June. Heck, that was just celebrated 2 days ago. So I just find this uncomfortable because I really don't know what the rules are. They seem to change quite a bit. Oh, is it bad now that he gets his jollies by pretending to be a woman? I thought that was something you weren't allowed to criticize. So look, no easy answers here. I'm just going to stick with the Cartman rules from South Park when it comes to this issue.
I want to know just what makes you think it's okay to go inside the girls' bathroom.
Because I'm transgender. I looked it up. That means I can use the girls.
You are not transgender, Eric. You don't even know what that means.
Yeah, it means I live a life of torture and confusion because society sees me as a boy, but I'm really a girl.
All right, well, if you identify yourself as a girl, you must find yourself attracted to boys. Is that right?
That's actually not true. I can be transgender without it having anything to do with the gender I'm attracted to. Check the state bylaws.
All right, listen, Eric.
Erica.
Listen, Eric. You must know why we can't have you in the girls' bathroom.
All I know is I'm transgender, and you can't make me go to the bathroom with the cisgenders.
With the what?
Cisgender. It's the politically correct name for people who aren't transgender. If you identify with the sex you were born with, then you're cis.
But then cisgender is just normal.
Saying normal is extremely offensive to people who aren't in that group. Trust me, you don't want this hot potato. Just let him use the girls' room.
But this isn't a hurting, confused child we're talking about. This is Eric Cartman.
Nobody else is gonna know that. You better just give him what he wants.
So Eric Cartman just has us in some kind of bathroom checkmate?
Actually, it's more like a royal flush.
That's my rules as I understand them. That's where I'm at. No, I get it. I for 3 years I co-hosted a show with a guy that had this same little side project. It was technically, this would be a good Google for you. Garrett, this will be a good Google for you. Autogynephilia is what he had. We used to talk about it all the time. He never came out public with it, but for years it was behind the scenes. And I got a good look at that world, and it's a compulsion. They can't turn it off. I got to say, I was adjacent to it for years. Never understood it, but whatever. It was benevolent. Coming up next, Dallas radio legend Jerry Reynolds, the car pro, is going to come on and talk about what's going on with the spike in gas prices because it might go a little bit higher. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, Jerry Reynolds, the Car Pros on the James Show. News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Jerry Reynolds, welcome back to the James Show. First, how long has the Car Pro been going? All right. Well, a lot of people are looking at the price of gas. It's gone up since this whole Iran war thing popped off. I have a feeling it has room to go up some more. Can we expect the prices to get worse? Okay. Well, how nice is it to have an electric car? I know you have both. Do you lean on that more when gas is high? Yeah, then you're never going to make your money back. Jerry Reynolds, is hypermiling still a thing? Yeah, yeah. All right, Jerry Reynolds, what's coming up on the Car Pro Show? Well, good deal. There he is, Jerry Reynolds, Car Pro Show. You can hear it from 9 to 11 on Saturdays here on WBAP. Thank you very much, Jerry Reynolds. Right, and I think the takeaway from there is don't sweat the high gas prices. Yeah, it's going to hurt, but it's not worth trading in your car. Calm down, people. Coming up next on The James Show, immigration talk. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, what's the latest on immigration? I'll get you all caught up here on the James Show. News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Immigration is going to be a hot topic, nationally speaking. I mean, there's so much going on with the legal immigration crime, with the ICE deportations, with the Somali fraud. Here on the local front, looks a little bit different. We're having issues with Muslims and Hindus in the Frisco, Plano, and across North Texas. 48 new mosques in the last 2 years have some people with their antennas buzzing. And then on top of all that, right now in the Supreme Court, the debate is over birthright citizenship attributed to the 14th Amendment. So where do we start? Well, let's start locally here. Savannah Hernandez, TPUSA reporter. She went and she's not someone that's originally from here, if I'm not mistaken. She's a new person who has transplanted here. She heard about the Hindu temple up in Frisco, went to check it out for herself. And what you can't see in the video is in the background is a 50-foot tall temple. It's like 6 stories high. It's huge. It looks kind of cool. Also looks kind of weird. But this was her report on it.
This is Savannah Hernandez in Frisco, Texas, and I have been hearing from quite a few Texans about the changing culture and demographic up in North Texas, so I wanted to come and check it out myself. And behind me is the Hanuman Temple, which was created here in Frisco surrounding the deity Hanuman. Now, I wanted to come to this area because, as you guys can see behind me, this is a residential area, and you have this very large, very intricate temple that is in this location where you quite frankly would not expect it. And one of the first things I saw when we got here was a huge pile of shoes outside because you cannot wear shoes inside the temple. So you have a lot of people that are walking around this area barefoot. And I actually went inside myself because I wanted to go check it out. And when you get inside, you see people worshiping multiple deities. And the one that did stick out to me was the area where people were going to pray for blessings of health and also for work visas.
Yeah, you heard that correctly. She said they're praying for work visas at the temple. Okay. Beau French, who is probably going to be on the show either Friday or Monday again. He stopped by our table at CPAC for a while there, and then later he was actually up on stage at the big stage in the ballroom on CPAC, and the issue of immigration came up here in Texas, and he kind of took a very Texan approach to the national problem. Got a lot of negative press for the rest of the weekend because he said we may have to be getting rid of maybe up to 100 million people.
We've allowed, since 1965, we've allowed immigration from lots of places in the world whose culture and values do not align with America. And the problem with that is everyone's like, oh, well, the Muslims, they're only 1% of the population in the United States. And that maybe wouldn't be a problem if they were sort of evenly distributed, but that's not what they do. They focus on certain areas so that they can just replicate what they've done for the last 1,400 years. And it is a process by which they...
Wait, you mean we have an example
There's
of
a history. I know that we don't like to talk about history and facts and things like that. But to me, this speaks of a bigger problem, right? And frankly, it's not just the Muslims we've allowed, and it's not just illegal immigration. It's not just the Biden 4 years when 20 million people came across our border, mostly here in Texas. It is that we have roughly 100 million people in this country who shouldn't be here. They don't share our values. They don't want to assimilate. And I would argue that this is just one component of it. Now, I think it's probably arguably the most dangerous component. I mean, think about it. The Somalis in Minnesota, they came here illegally. But look at all the fraud that they've committed. There are plenty of H-1B, fraudulent schemes that we've uncovered here in Texas. So this is a problem across the nation. And I think we have to have politicians who are willing to say, we are America first. We're going to fight for the things that Americans want. And we're not going to put up with anymore, and we're going to send all these people home. That's the only way we're going to stop the Islamification of Texas and America, not just by banning Sharia law, not just by banning, the call to prayer. No, who wants to hear that? Not just by banning halal slaughter, which are all things that I've called for, but more importantly, we have to send them all home.
Yeah. I think that's something...
Now, I think the number's a little high. I don't think it's 100 million people that we need to send packing. but it's pretty high. I think it's in the tens of millions. And there's a lot of people who say we have to deport everyone who's here illegally. But okay, I think that would be a good start. But when we have some of the issues that we've been having lately, those two guys, the two guys that threw the bomb in New York City at the protest in front of the mayor's mansion.
New York City!
Both of those guys were here legally. Both of those guys were born in Afghanistan. They came here in the aughts. They got their paperwork. They went through the process. They actually got not just legal permanent resident status here. They got their citizenship here. That's not the only one. He pointed out the Somali immigrants, from the Leering Center and all the fraud that's going on in California and Washington and Ohio. And what's going on in Texas too. A lot of those people, if not most of them, legal immigrants. The Muslim shooter at Old Dominion, he was here legally. The Muslim shooter at the Michigan synagogue, he was here legally. So it's not just the illegal immigrants that have to go. It starts with the illegal immigrants, and maybe some of the illegal immigrants would be better off staying. We'd be better off if they stayed. But the ones that want us all dead, can we get rid of those? And I don't care. If it is 100 million, then we need to get rid of 100 million. I don't think it's that high. I think it might be closer to like 10 or 20 million. But yeah, do you leave the guy in your room that wants to kill you? Or do you ask him or make him go to a different room? Because you can't share a country with people that want you dead. And I'm not leaving. So that makes the solution pretty clear. Coming up next on the James Show, we'll go over the birthright citizenship issue. Because I don't know if you realize what a big deal birthright citizenship tourism has. I'm going to answer this question next. How many Chinese women, Chinese national women, in their 9th month of pregnancy come here every year to the United States on a tourist visa, have a baby, get his dual citizenship, and then go back to China? The number will shock you. I'll tell you next on the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, the Supreme Court is debating birthright citizenship. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I find this very frustrating because to me, it's obvious. Of course, the 14th Amendment doesn't give birthright citizenship to anyone that pops out a baby over here, especially illegal immigrants. Of course, the 14th Amendment was speaking directly about slaves that were born here, and it was a mechanism by which they were to get citizenship. And it's easy because, you know, some of these arguments have been brought up. I'm not going to play everything I've heard on this case here, but go back and look at when they were debating in the House and Senate. They have records. They have the minutes. When the debate was going on, when it was being passed, and when it's an amendment, so it had to be ratified. Were they talking about immigration in these hearings, in these debates, in these speeches, in these committees? No, they weren't. It's quite obvious what it was for. So the only question is common sense going to win the day? Because this could be a sticky situation if birthright citizenship isn't a thing anymore. Is that applied retroactively? And if it is, how many people are anchor babies here? How many people's citizenship depends on this misinterpretation of the 14th Amendment? Do all of them all of a sudden become illegal immigrants? Do they have to leave? Wild stuff. There's a lot hanging in the balance in this case. And while even if we get what we want, it may be pretty ugly. We got to do it. You got to stand tight. Here is Robert Sauer. He is the Solicitor General. That is the lawyer that is trying the case in front of the Supreme Court on behalf of you. And he said something that I hadn't heard before. You and I both know that birthright citizenship tourism has been a thing. But I bet you didn't know how bad China is taking advantage.
You mentioned in your briefing and also this morning the problem of birth tourism. Do you have any information about how common that is or how significant a problem it is?
It's a great question. No one knows for sure. There's a March 9th letter from a number of members of Congress to DHS saying, do we have any information about this? The media reports indicate estimates could be over a million or 1.5 million from the People's Republic of China alone. The congressional report that we cite in our brief talks about certain hotspots like Russian elites coming to Miami through these birth tourism companies. And I mean, here's the facts about it that I think is striking. Media reported as early as 2015 that based on Chinese media reports, there are 500 birth tourism companies in the People's Republic of China whose business is to bring people here to give birth and return to that nation.
Having said all that, you do agree that that has no impact on the legal analysis before us?
I think it's, I'd quote what Justice Scalia said in his Hamdan dissent, where their interpretation has these implications that could not possibly have been approved by the 19th century framers of this amendment. I think that shows that they've made a mess. Their interpretation has made a mess of the provision.
Well, it certainly wasn't a problem in the 19th century.
No, but of course, we're in a new world now, as Justice Alito pointed out to, where 8 billion people are one plane ride away from having a child who's a U.S. citizen.
Well, it's a new world. It's the same Constitution.
It is, and as Justice Scalia said, I think in the case that Justice Alito was referring to, you've got a constitutional provision that addresses certain evils, and it should be extended to reasonably comparable evils. He said that about statutory interpretation. I think the same principle applies here, and I think we quote that in our brief.
Thank you, Justice.
Well, I hope this is a done deal. I think there's a less than 50% chance you're going to get your way on this one. Amy Coney Barrett sounds like she's a little soft on the idea of ending birthright citizenship. You know, Ketanji Affirmative Action Jackson's going to be against it. The two other liberal women on the court are going to be against it. So if we have two squishes from the otherwise Team Red side, we might not get this taken care of. Your thoughts on birthright citizenship, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, you'll hear a couple of clips, one from Amy Coney Barrett, two from Ketanji Brown, about birthright citizenship being debated right now in the Supreme Court. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Are you smarter than a Supreme Court justice? It's the James Show, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Supreme Court justices right now are debating the Trump executive order ending birthright citizenship. I have a hard time seeing how they can come up with an interpretation that supports birthright citizenship, giving the text of the 14th Amendment and the context in which it was written. However, the Supreme Court breaks my heart on a regular basis. I'm surprised they haven't struck down the Department of Education yet. I'm surprised they haven't struck down the Department of Health and Human Services. I'm surprised they haven't struck down Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and about 70-something% of what the federal government does is unconstitutional. So no, I'm not too optimistic about our chances here, but at least we have a chance. At least it's being debated and it's not a done deal. But here's the disappointing part. Amy Coney Barrett sounds like she's kind of soft on the issue. Let me play you a couple minutes of this. The guy you're going to hear is John Sauer. He is the Solicitor General for the United States. Amy Coney Barrett is the female. She is one of the Supreme Court justices.
Okay, let's talk about its applications. So, there are some, I can imagine it being messy on some applications. So what would you do with what the common law called foundlings? The thing about this is then you have to adjudicate. If you're looking at parents, and if you're looking at parents' domicile, then you have to adjudicate both residence and intent to stay. What if you don't know who the parents are?
I think there are marginal cases. That one, I think, has the benefit of being addressed in 1401F, where it talks about.
Yeah. But what about the Constitution?
Under the Constitution, domicile is a constitutional standard in all kinds of other situations.
Well, and it's hard.
Diversity jurisdiction, personal jurisdiction, sorry.
Well, yeah, and a personal jurisdiction, 1332, diversity jurisdiction. And the thing is, it has to be litigated because it turns on intent. And both the virtue of both jus soli and jus sanguinis, whichever one you pick, it's a bright line rule. How would it work? How would you adjudicate these cases? You're not going to know at the time of birth for some people whether they have the intent to stay or not, including U.S. citizens, by the way. What if you have someone who is living in Norway with their husband and family, but is still a U.S. citizen, comes home and has her child here and goes back? How do we know whether the child is a U.S. citizen because the parent didn't have an intent to stay?
I'd say make 2 points, one practical, one legal. The practical point is under the terms of this executive order, you don't have to, because the executive order turns on objectively verifiable things, which is immigration status. Are you lawfully present but temporarily present, or do you have an illegal status? So those kind of taking evidence, so to speak, under subjective intent wouldn't be done. And as to the constitutional point, obviously domicile is baked into a lot of constitutional and legal concepts, and there may be situations where facts are determined. But if you look at the guidance that all the agencies did after this court in Costa said the agency could go forward to issue guidance, the guidance provides, I think, very, very clear, objective, verifiable approaches to doing this. And so as a practical matter, I don't think it's presented by this executive order.
I thought those, look, I'm not trying to be mean. I thought those were really dumb questions. I don't know, newsflash. Well, what about the American citizens that are living in Norway permanently, but they come back here and have the baby, and then they take it back to Norway? Well, that's an American citizen. Are the people that had the baby an American citizen? Yeah. If both of your parents are American citizens and you have the baby in America, where is the doubt? Well, they permanently reside in Norway. So what? I didn't think any of that was tough at all. I think it's embarrassing to ask. One more clip here, and then we'll get to the phones. Ketanji, Affirmative Action Jackson, was making the case that if she steals a wallet in Japan, that she's still subject to their laws. So isn't she subject to the jurisdiction thereof?
I was thinking about this, and I think there are various sources that say this, that you obviously have permanent allegiance based on being born in whatever country you're from. That's what everybody recognizes. But you also have local allegiance when you are on the soil of this other sovereign. And I was thinking, I, a U.S. citizen, am visiting Japan. And what it means is that, if I steal someone's wallet in Japan, the Japanese authorities can arrest me and prosecute me. It's allegiance, meaning can they control you as a matter of law. I can also rely on them if my wallet is stolen to, under Japanese law, go and prosecute the person who has stolen it. So there's this relationship based on, even though I'm a temporary traveler, I'm just on vacation in Japan, I'm still locally owing allegiance in that sense.
There's 200 countries on planet Earth, and only about 30 of them grant automatic citizenship to anyone born within their borders. When we talk about, well, what would this system look like? How will we know when it's right and when it's wrong? I don't know. Why don't you pick one of the other 170 countries and pick an example that works the best for you? But this idea of birthright citizenship, hell no, this doesn't need to continue. Now to the phones we go. Marty in Fort Worth. You're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP.
How's it going, James?
Great.
Quick question for you. So, like for me, as an example, both of my parents were immigrants. They weren't citizens at the time that I was born. And then they became citizens later. So I served in the Navy for 11 years, 2 in the Army, 11 as a highway patrolman until I got shot and they retired me out. And I've been serving and serving and serving. So what happens to me? Am I considered a non-citizen anymore, or would I still be considered citizen?
Yeah, maybe you'd be a non-citizen if this gets overturned and they apply it retroactively. So how old? I mean, you were born here?
I was born here. My parents were not.
Okay. And then they went and got citizenship later. I don't know. Maybe we should write in like an exception for if you were a military veteran and, you have an honorable discharge or.
Yeah, you would have. I mean, there would be so many different exceptions, though. I mean, wouldn't there have to be?
Well, there wouldn't have to be any exceptions. I'm not even sure if there would have to be an exception for your case. It would be terrible to lose someone like you who's done so much for our community. But if the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater and we get rid of all these other illegal immigrants and legal immigrants who shouldn't be here, all the H-1Bs, all the Sharia cities, all the terrorists, all the people making bombs and flame-throwing people and committing terror attacks, if we have to lose a couple of Martys in Fort Worth, do you think that would be worth it for the country as a whole? I know that wouldn't be good for you, but for the country as a whole, you think that would be worth it?
I don't know, because I mean, you have so many people who have served in the military and have served, for the country.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, even like is Rubio parents, weren't they born in Cuba?
Yeah. So Rubio's parents were born in Cuba. We have the drive land policy though. So the second that a Cuban makes it here and gets their foot on dry land, they're a legal resident. Now they weren't. I don't think they were citizens when he was born, but yeah, he would be grandfathered in because of his parents were subject to the jurisdiction thereof, if you want to interpret it like that, because that's part of the 14th Amendment. Anyone who was born here, whose parents are citizens or subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And one of the reasons they wrote it in there like that is to exclude foreign diplomats and exclude tourists, but really it was also to exclude the Native Americans, who they were trying to see as their own separate nation, not necessarily part of this nation. And if you were going to keep them, if you didn't want to just destroy the Iroquois or the Cherokee, you would have them be their own nation. They would have to have their own citizenship too. So it wasn't like a discrimination thing as much as it was a kind of a delineate between the two nations there.
Okay. Yeah, it just seems like if someone like him, he technically wouldn't. I mean, even though he was born here, he's not a citizen considered because so would he be able to run for president?
Well, see, that depends on the interpretation of and subject to the jurisdiction thereof in the 14th Amendment. So would that mean kids that are born to legal immigrants here or permanent residents or green card holders, would they be citizens? So, yeah, that's kind of left up in the air. And I think there is some room for debate on that. But for the rest of it, for someone who's here and they're born to illegal immigrant parents, I don't think that's what the 14th Amendment was talking about when they were granting birthright citizenship. So that may be bad news for you, Marty. I'd hate to lose a listener.
Well, no, I don't know that because I think my parents were legal residents, though. I don't think they were illegal immigrants.
How's your Spanish?
It's really good, actually.
Oh, okay. All right, good stuff. All right, Marty. Well, we're pulling for you, bud. Thank you. You're going to hear more reaction from some of your neighbors on the Supreme Court case on birthright citizenship coming up next, 800-288-9227. Also, I'm going to be live at Texas Live for opening day of the baseball season for Texas Rangers on Friday. Come see me live from 2 to 5. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I know some of you people out there with back pain, it's not consistent. Some days you wake up and your back's fine. Some days you wake up and you try and roll over and you go, uh-oh, and you know it's going to be a terrible day and you're just going to have to live with pain. And that's not fun because on the good days you forget about it, but on the bad days, you're in pain, you're irritable, you're a little snippy with your family and your coworkers. Being in pain makes you sweaty sometimes. If you're in a whole lot of pain, don't you just start sweating sometimes? Listen, you don't have to live like that. Maybe you can get some help from QC Kinetics. James Parker here for QC Kinetics. Go ahead, take advantage of the free consultation. And I don't know if it'll work for you, but find out if it'll work for you, because the quality of life that you could restore if you could just get rid of that pain is totally worth it. It's some new high-tech treatments that haven't been around for that long, but they work. And they don't work for everybody, but go check out some of the reviews. Go check out the consultation. Go find out a little bit more about it, because if it does work for you, it will change your life. So the consultations are free. Don't wait. Call today. QC Kinetics, 972-972-8610. 972-972-8610. Birthright citizenship is on the chopping block in the Supreme Court. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Before we jump back into the calls, I think it's a no-brainer. Of course, the 14th Amendment did not mean universal birthright citizenship that almost no country does, that almost no country tolerates, for precisely the reasons that we're seeing now. You get birthright citizenship tourism, where you have millions, and I'm not exaggerating, literally millions of Chinese women have come over here in the last few years in their 9th month of pregnancy on a tourism visa, had their baby, got dual citizenship, took it back to China. And China is banking these people, which means at any point, if China wants to send in millions and millions of operatives, we can't stop them. Legally speaking, we can't keep them away. What kind of system are we setting up for ourselves here? So I think I'm going to be disappointed in the decision, but I think there's no way the people who wrote the 14th Amendment were talking about the situation in which it's being applied today. Clearly, this was intended for slaves and children of slaves. Back to the phones we go. This is Cleo in Plano. You're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
Hi, James. I've actually had, I feel like I'm kind of breaking HIPAA here. I'm not going to mention names, but I've had plenty of the Chinese ladies as patients. If you go to some of the extended stay hotels around here, what they usually do is they give birth to their kids at a birthing center, and then they stay at the extended stay hotel until the infant can fly. And that depends on the midwife and how careful parents want to be. It can be 2 weeks and it can be 8 weeks of age, after a couple of vaccines. And if the parents have enough money, then they go pretty quickly, because then they don't have to worry about being on a flight with everyone else. They can have like a chartered flight. And they're pretty open about it, and they talk about it, and they always pay cash, so they're kind of great patients. But when you go to these hotels, entire floors will have everyone on it is Chinese. They're all waving at each other, and they know each other, and it's clear what's going on.
So you see this because you work in that arena?
Yes, I see this. Yes, because I do home health care lactation, and that means, where you're currently living.
So you're up in Plano. You see the illegal or the immigration system being abused by Chinese nationals. You see it being abused by Indian nationals. You see it being abused by everyone south of the Rio Grande.
Well, I don't have any Hispanic women, just because we're up in Collin County. You would have to talk to someone who works in Dallas to really see that. But the Indians, I probably shouldn't say this they will normally have a baby within the first year of being here. It's like that's their priority if they're here on a visa.
Of course,
because
what a gift!
It easier for them to have an excuse and to get their visa, redone. And they'll usually have like a couple of kids really fast. So they're smart. They
What
don't
a
want to do
scam.
anchor. They try to do several.
We're such dupes. We are just being used and abused, and we're just taking it because we're nice. But of course, listen, because if you want to, legally be an American citizen and you're coming from India, you probably have to get in a waiting line, and it'll probably cost forever if you don't have any money. I mean, it might take forever, and then after you go through the waiting list and all the tests and the paperwork and, decades later, maybe you can stumble on falling into American citizenship, or you just have a baby. It's really that easy. We're being used, people. Ken in Arlington, you're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
Hey, I think the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth needs to come into play. If the countries that are sending their 9-month pregnant women over here to the United States to pop out to become citizens, a bunch of white women that are 9 months pregnant should go over there and drop off the kids, be born over there, get dual citizenship, and claim all the rights. Mexico will not allow it. All the countries that are China, that are sending their citizens over here to do that, will not allow us to go over there and do that. So That should stop it.
Yeah, so you can't do that. In India, at least one parent has to be a citizen or legal resident. They don't have birthright citizenship there. No, we couldn't do that if we wanted to, because we're one of the few countries that has the insane policy of birthright citizenship. It's United States, Canada, and Mexico. A few other Latin American countries and like 3 African countries are the only people that do this. They don't do it anywhere in Europe. They only do it in one country in Asia, Pakistan. We're the only idiots that are doing this. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. More on the Supreme Court debate on birthright citizenship next on The James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Should birthright citizenship remain the law of the land? It's being debated in Supreme Court. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I find it very disappointing. I consider this a no-brainer, but you have people pushing back on it. I mean, is the argument they're making really that the people who wrote the 14th Amendment when it got passed in 1868, we're talking about anchor babies or we're talking about slaves? Which one makes more sense? Because it was never interpreted like that until, 1920 something or other, when some court decided to reinterpret the 14th Amendment to make anchor babies a thing. Yeah, right. So more than 50 years later, the first time it was applied. Isn't that a pretty big hint that's not what the people who wrote the amendment meant? Like the fact that the amendment went into power and immediately we weren't doing anchor babies, but the people that wrote the amendment, were they suing? Were they making public statements? So here's another exchange here. John Sauer, U.S. Solicitor General, talking to Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Jackson.
There's currently a system where, for example, social security numbers are generated based on the birth certificate. They say this can still be, for the vast majority of instances, completely transparent. You will still get a...
No, not transparent. I'm just talking about the particulars, because now you say your rule turns on whether the person intended to stay in the United States. And I think Justice Barrett brought this up. So are we bringing pregnant women in for depositions? What are we doing to figure this out?
No, as I pointed out earlier, the executive order turns on lawfulness of status. So if you give birth to a baby in the hospital right now, it gets the birth certificate in the system. There's a computer system.
So there's no opportunity, there's apparently no opportunity then for the person to prove or to say that they actually intended to stay in the United States?
Absolutely not. The opposite is true. Their opportunity to dispute if they think they were wrongly denied, which would only happen in a tiny minority of cases, is directly addressed in that guidance.
After the fact.
Yes.
After their baby has been denied citizenship, then we can go through the process.
Yes. And the way that, I'm summarizing because I'm not an expert in computers, but there's a computer program that currently automatically generates a social security number. SSA says, look, a social security number, non-citizens can have them if they have work authorization, so it doesn't prove citizenship. We'll give you a social security number, provided that the system automatically checks the immigration status of the parents, which there are robust databases for, and then it appears no different to the vast majority of birthing parents.
Thank you.
All right, dude. It's the same woman who's like, I don't know. How on earth would I be able to tell who a woman is? The same woman going, well, I don't know. How would we ever be able to tell the nationality of the parents? So what if we don't even know who the parents are? I think when you're in the maternity ward, we can nail down one of them. This is Patrick and Garland. You're on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, James. This is a great conversation, and I found myself thinking, did you ever think you would miss Ruth Bader Ginsburg? But in any case, for clarification on your argument, which you're making some good points, we need to talk a little bit about what different classifications of alien there are. There's a resident alien who comes to the country legally, gets a green card, can receive a social security number, work, pay taxes, get social security after they retire. About the only thing they can't do is vote or live in the White House. And then you've got diplomats. They are absolutely not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. And then we have tourists who are subject to some of the things, like if Ketanji Brown steals a wallet in
Japan
or in the in Japan or she's gonna get thrown in the slammer. But try having a baby over in Japan, Ketanji Brown, and tell me what nationality that is. I can tell you that baby's going to be American. But then we have the illegal immigrants, the illegal aliens who either come here for the sole purposes that, as that healthcare professional was saying, who are coming here for the sole purpose of getting the baby, or are just are just here illegally in the first place.
No, I think we all follow what you're saying, and this is where there is legitimate debate. This is where there is a little bit of gray area in the 14th Amendment. What did they mean by people who are subject to the jurisdiction thereof? But I don't think there's any rational interpretation that includes illegal immigrants in that group. So naturalized citizens, that's a solid probably. people who are here on a permanent basis in the process to get citizenship, that's a solid maybe. Maybe they have dual citizenship, or maybe they don't get citizenship until the parents get citizenship, and then it sort of trickles down like that.
Right.
And
Well,
that's a worthy discussion to have. But this idea,
my parents were both British, and anytime they'd open their mouths about America, I said, when I become president, I'm going to deport y'all. And it was a good laugh. And I go with them out of spite because I do have dual citizenship between the United States and Britain. I can slam Starmer and Pelosi and anybody I want on both sides of the Atlantic. But you're right about that. It's something that does need to be defined. I would fall on the side of the green card. If you came here legally with the intent to stay here, you should be eligible to have a baby who is, by God, going to call himself a Texan for his entire life, which is also me.
well, I say if you had the intent to stay here and you were already here legally, yeah. That's good stuff. All right, Patrick and Garland. I don't think we're going to solve that level of nuance today, but at least we agree that birthright citizenship should not apply to people who are here illegally. Coming up next, a new law in Texas went in effect today. It's anti-sugar. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. So candy and sodas are now banned for food stamps in Texas. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Round of applause there. Not everything is a losing proposition in the modern world. You know, I really hate the doomsayers, the Eeyores of society that run around, everything's terrible, everything's getting worse, the country's falling apart, America's in decline. No, we're not. Are you nuts? Look at how awesome life is in 2026. Now, not everything's perfect, but things are pretty dang sweet out there. We check in with WFAA to give you the update on food stamps in Texas.
Major changes to the SNAP program in Texas begin today. Candy or drinks with more than 5 grams of added sugar are now banned, as well as nuts, raisins, or fruits that have been candied, crystallized, glazed, or coated with chocolate, yogurt, or caramel. Some baking items or frozen treats made with real fruit still qualify. This is part of a push Texas lawmakers approved to align with the Trump administration's Make America Healthy Again movement.
When I was growing up back in the 90s, I got a job at a grocery store, bagging groceries out in Bug Tussle. And if everyone could just do that for about, 3 months or so, you would learn a whole lot about your fellow man. I have this weird brain that just seizes on stuff. And so I figured, hey, while I work at a grocery store, this is going to be super interesting to see what everybody buys for groceries. And see how it's different from family to family. See how it's different from race to race, ethnicity, culture, all the differences between immigrants and locals and city people and country people and people in flip-flops and people in dress shoes. You got to see rich versus poor. It was amazing. Another great experiment, if you could just wait tables for about 3 months and see how people act at restaurants. And see how a wide smattering of society acts at restaurants and what they order and how they talk to waiters, how much they tip. You would be so fascinated with the results. But I can tell you, back in the day, in the 90s, you could tell when someone was paying with food stamps in Texas because it wasn't actually stamps, like you had to lick them and stick them on anything. It was like little coupons. It was like Monopoly money. So they couldn't hide it. Now they just have the Lone Star card, and you can swipe it. I don't know, even if you were a bagger, if you could tell. But I got to see for months and months at a time in the mid-90s what people on food stamps bought for food, what they bought with those food stamps. And if you think it's bad, however bad you think it is, it's probably worse. It is so god-awful what these people buy. They just go buy all the junk in the world and then the nicest, most awesome meat they can find. That's it. They come up with crab claws and lobster tails and big, thick steaks. And they don't get the cheap, ground-up chuck that's 70% lean, 30% fat. No, man, they're getting the big, thick, juicy fillets, and they show up with tomahawks, and then the rest of their stuff is in boxes and bags, which I don't know if you're familiar with the health convention. If you're shopping at the grocery store and you're trying to eat healthy, you just shop on the outside wall. All the things that are oddly shaped are stuck on the outside wall. Most of the stuff that needs, like refrigeration or whatnot, that's healthy is stuck on the outside wall. The stuff that's refrigerated but stuck in the aisles, that's all your hyper-processed packaged stuff, your frozen foods, your TV dinners. Everything else that's on the shelf is usually in boxes or cans. That's not real food. That's not fresh food. But all the produce and all the good meat's on the outside. I saw what they bought. It was god-awful. And if you see it for just a month, probably for one day, you would walk out of the grocery store thinking, we just need to end food stamps. And that's part of the reason I'm such a libertarian on these social programs. It's because I've been so closely adjacent to the results of these programs. It's terrible. I changed my thinking on that immediately. And the fact that, hang on a second, people have CPS, people have Child Protective Services called on them because their kid goes and plays at the park at the end of the block without adult supervision, even though they're 11 years old. But if we have a problem in society where parents aren't feeding their kids, we just come up with a social program for them. How about this? How about the last thing we need to subsidize is someone else feeding their kids? Because if you can't feed your kids or you refuse to feed your kids, the state should come take them away. We shouldn't subsidize your sloth and your failure. And I don't think that's a controversial stance to take. Steve, Weatherford, you're on WBAP.
James, over the years gone by, I have occasion to know about several shops where I've lived, or little small mom and dad grocery stores where you can take your food stamps allocation each month into the store and cash them in for 50 cents on the dollar and then go buy drugs and beer with it.
Yeah.
That's very common.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You're totally right, Steve. They always get abused. So yeah, I'm glad it went into effect. My druthers, though, is if we just got rid of food stamps all together. If you're an adult, you should be able to feed yourself. If you're a parent, you should be able to feed your kid. All right. If you want to go to the Bush concert on Us, text the word Bush to 800-288-9227. They're going to be at the Pavilion at Toyota Music Factory in 3 weeks, April 21st. And it's not just tickets. You get a pair of premium seats, VIP merch, an autograph poster, and a VIP photo opportunity with the band. If you want to get in on this contest, text the word Bush to 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.